Does Disney really get Star Wars, or do they get what's going on with the fan base of Star Wars? It seems like they haven't learned much, and this is another quote coming out from the top guy, Bob Iger, and it seems to indicate that he still doesn't really get the problem with the franchise. So we're going to be talking about that coming up. Guys, how you doing? It's been a little while. I've been busy this month. I've had a couple weddings traveling to out of state, so haven't really been able to film much. But this article was sent to me by my friend this morning, and after I read it, I thought, well, I got to do a video on this because it's like I just feel like Disney's not really getting with the franchise and what happened with the backlash. This is coming from IO9, and it says the Star Wars movie under Disney's purview have ranged from excellent expansions to the franchise to perfectly fine. Opinions may vary, of course, but there hasn't really been a generally poorly received one. Now, again, like this is how it's almost been a year. It's coming up on a year soon, a couple months since Last Jedi, and they're still saying there hasn't been a poorly received one. Come on, guys. I mean, the backlash for Last Jedi it's been ridiculous. It's almost been a year. It's gonna be a year. People aren't backing off this, and you're still thinking it hasn't been poorly received. And then, if you want to talk about box office, Solo was poorly received in the box office. Despite people thinking the movie was fine or entertaining enough to watch. It didn't do well in the box office. And so that's two, either you want to take it from fan reviews or box office score, box office money. It's, both have been kind of poorly received in their own ways. So anyway, there has been quite a lot of them, though, with even more on the way. But Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger says that maybe we can start to expect them to spread out going forward. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter in a wide-ranging interview covering everything from Disney's upcoming streaming service to what the acquisition of Fox means for Marvel's moviegoers going forward, Iger said that the current state of one Star Wars movie a year is a bit too much for a franchise that had laid dormant at the box office for almost a decade before 2015's The Force Awakens. It would seem that after Episode 9 hits the theaters next year, fans will be waiting a bit to see more from the galaxy far, far away on the big screen. So he's saying that because the franchise laid dormant, there wasn't a movie between 2005 Revenge of the Sith and 2015, so it's a 10-year period. That's why we can't have this rush of movies every year, because it was 10 years without a movie. We had a 10-year drought, and now it's gonna flood. It's gonna flood the fan base. So like when rains hit in California, we had the Great Drought, and when the rains came in mass quantities, that was last year, there was a lot of flooding issues because the ground's dry and it can't really hold the water, so it causes flooding. And so that's the analogy they're giving to this, and that's just so silly. Despite the environmental changes of a drought and rain, I think when it comes to movies and a fan base, we're starving. We're starving for more. It doesn't have to do with the frequency of the movies. It has to do with the quality of the movies. That's the problem, and it seems like again, they just don't get it. God, I'd love to see a great Star Wars movie a year. I'd love to see 2 a year. Look at Marvel, I mean, come on, guys. Marvel puts out great movies, 3 a year, and they're fantastic, and they all do well. I don't know what to say to this. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know. They're pulling at straws, and they're trying to come up with reasons because they don't want to admit their mistake, I guess, in the fact that they are creating bad movies. Okay, so this is his quote. Bob Iger's quote. I made that timing decision, and as I look back, I think the mistake that I made, I take the blame, was a little too much, too fast. You can expect some slowdown, but that doesn't mean we're not going to make films. J.J. Abrams is busy making Episode 9. We have creative entities, including Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who are developing sagas of their own, which we haven't been specific about. And why haven't they been specific about it? I want to know more about them. Anyway, and we are just at the point where we're going to start making decisions about what comes next after JJ's. But I think we're going to be a little bit more careful about volume and timing. And the buck stops here on that. Buck stops there. As Bob Iger says, Bobby's saying, buck stops there. So that's the end of his quote. And then it says, this is perhaps likely down to the fact that the most recent releases, Solo, a Star Wars story, reading too fast, merely did decently at the box office. It wasn't a flop like some easily excitable people would like to shriek, but it wasn't blowing up the box office records like a fully armed and operational battle station blows up peaceful pro-rebellion worlds, like many, including Disney, have come to expect of a Star Wars movie. I would say it was I don't want to be easily excitable, as it says, but I think it was kind of a flop. Turning Star Wars movies into events instead of an annual occurrence is a good way to get people excited for any Star Wars, whether it's mainline movie or a Star Wars story spin-off, or one of the upcoming more out there movie plans like the Rian Johnson and Benny Hoffman-Weiss projects. I will say that up in the quote here, Bob Iger did not mention Rian Johnson at all. He said the Benny Hoffman-Weiss creators, but he didn't say Rian Johnson's name. Interesting, very interesting. Now the article, says that because apparently he's still working on his trilogy disaster, but Bob Iger didn't say it, so I think that's telling. He might be saying something without saying something. Okay, but it's also a good idea because it will hopefully allow for more varied Star Wars material to be made. A regular, ceaseless cycle of yearly Star Wars means that it's easy to get trapped into a cycle of movies that, aesthetic or tonal tweaks aside, generally cover similar Star Wars-y things we already know and love, because that's what works. Marvel does it and they do it well. So again, I just don't agree with that. Leading to a sameness the franchise desperately needs to avoid if it wants to keep expanding and thriving like it has been. Because you can have movies like Ant-Man is drastically different than Thor Ragnarok. But they still have the same feel. You could tell they're Marvel, the Marvel superhero movies, but they're totally different in tone. Why couldn't Star Wars do the same thing? I mean, they kind of have. Solo was different in tone than The Last Jedi, but also Rogue One. That was a little darker, and Solo was a little more, upbeat, I guess you could say. I don't want to say comedic, but it was a little more upbeat. Plus, it's not like that means there'll be no Star Wars around just because the wait between movies is getting longer. Part of the strength of the post-Disney Star Wars era is that franchise's existence beyond the big screen is more vibrant and vital than ever, with books, TV shows, comics, fleshing out the universe in great ways on a regular basis. So even if you're not going to be getting a Star Wars movie every year, it's still going to be plenty from that galaxy far, far away to go around. We have Resistance starting this year. I'm not very excited about that based on the trailer. It looks too kiddie for me. I wish they would have gone a little more the route of Clone Wars, or at least Rebels, where you kind of mix some of the kid aspects with adult themes. Rebels was a good blend of that for Disney, but this seems like it's just kind of straightforward. Was it the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, which is just, it's a little more geared towards kids, so I'm not, kind of disappointed in that. But anyway, that's the article. This could be a plan to try to promote Disney's streaming service as well. That's going to be premiering next year, sometime in the fall, I believe, is when Bob Iger said that's going to be rolled out. So this could be a way to try to boost the views and subscriptions to their streaming service. If they're going to put the TV show live action, obviously it's going to be on there. Clone Wars season 7 is going to be on there. If they do like a sort of a mini movie, but just released on the streaming service instead of the movie theater, this could be a ploy to try to get people to subscribe, to make them hold out for the movies in the theater and sign up for the subscription service. So I don't know, it's interesting. I just thought, it just shows that there's a disconnect, I think, still with Disney when it comes to the Star Wars franchise, and I thought I'd do a video on it and talk about it. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more content. And until next time, lock the door and hope they don't have blasters.